Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cash Confident Podcast. Today, we have a big, juicy episode for you. What we're going to be working on is quantum leaps. All right. So, quantum leaps are very often discussed in the coaching space, in the metaphysical space, in the manifestation space. And so, what I really want to offer you today is what a quantum leap is, more or less the process on how to do it. And quantum leaping is actually something that is quite challenging. It's more of an advanced skill. And I kind of want to acknowledge that because I've read many books on the subject. And what I find is they always make it sound like it's something super easy to do, which is like kind of true. It's kind of true if you have all the skills that are required and you can do it. It's easy like the same way like you would say squatting 500 pounds is easy. Like, well, yeah, you just do you just do this, you just go to the gym, you just put the weights on the rack, you just do the squat, right? It's easy like that, if that makes sense. So, all right, so that's what we're going to get into today. So I'm very excited about this. All right. So what is the quantum leap? All right. So a quantum leap is basically a major shift in your consciousness, in your level of embodiment, your level of actions. And generally it's going to come with a big shift in how you see yourself, how people see you, and the kind of results that you can get. So generally when I'm working with clients, right, people are coming to see me to make a lot of money real fast, right, in their businesses or whatever else. And so when we go to scale from like most of my clients are in Limitless Wealth, they come see me making six figures, or I have clients too that come see me earlier in their business and then they want to make a real big amount of money. So what we're essentially doing to be able to do that is we're crafting a new way of seeing ourselves. We're taking actions at a different level. We're embodying different things. All right. So that's what a quantum leap is. And then when you do the quantum leap, generally you're going to see what looks like exponential results, like, quadruples, 10x in the business. And it happens depending on where you're starting from in this process. Usually the quantum leap is anywhere between like a few months and a couple of years. So in the big scheme of things, it happens really, really fast. Like when you think of your lifetime. But while you're going through the quantum leap, it doesn't necessarily feel like instantaneous. It doesn't really necessarily feel super fast from my experience. So, all right, let's really, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on this. And for this, if you're listening, I'm doing a lot of nonverbals. So it's the best way that I have to add to the explanation. So this episode will also go up on YouTube, just so you know, in case you're like, I'm listening to her, but I don't really get the whole thing. You could go, also look at this on YouTube. All right. Now, also right here, I just want to mention, so I have space in some of my coaching programs, and I have one spot open currently for private coaching. So as I get into this and I start offering you this topic, if you're finding like, holy shit, I want to work with Bree, I want to know how she can help me in my business or in my money, or I want her to coach me, inside, when you go to the show notes, there's a link there that will have, like a lot of my offerings, and will also have a link to my call calendar. So if you decide that you want to talk to me, what you would do is you would go, you make it will take you straight to Calendly where you can schedule a time. And what we'll do is we'll put, like a half hour on the calendar, and I'm going to talk to you, and this is a free call. And I'm gonna ask you questions and more or less see all the ways that I can help you. And then I can, from there, we can decide if we want to work together. But that's kind of how to get the process started. All right. So, all right, back to the frequency. So when we think about frequency and when we think about vibration, different levels of frequency have different thoughts, different inspirations, different actions, right? And when we want to shift, basically the place that we want to start is by getting our mind to move our awareness to a different frequency, to a different band of reality. So this sounds super woo. And later this month, I actually don't know the order that these are going to come out, but in the month of July, there will be a podcast out that's about the difference between the mind and the awareness. That needs its own in-depth All right, so earlier this month, there's an episode of the difference between the mind and the awareness. So I'm going to go over some of what's there a little bit so you have the context to listen to this episode. But if you're like, what is she talking about? Go back and listen to that previous episode of the mind and the awareness. All right. So our mind is the tool that moves our awareness. Now, awareness is the part of you that some people would describe as your soul or your I amness or your consciousness, right? So your I amness is like the little bit of divinity that lives within you. The mind is a tool that for that consciousness to use. So let's just say right now I want you to just for a second, take your mind, go into your bedroom. In your imagination, go into your sock drawer and get a pair of socks. All right. So what you did there was you took your mind, you and it moved your awareness into your sock drawer, and you became aware of the socks that are there, even though you're currently just doing whatever it is you're doing, right? So the mind can go into the future, it can go into the past, it can rehash things, the mind is also the places that our beliefs, our judgments, our stories, our patterns exist, right? So the mind is a tool, right? The awareness is the I amness, all right? And so when we are going to want to first quantum leap, we have to get our mind to be able to conceptualize a new reality for us. And so the mind can be a challenge here. The mind can bring up its beliefs and be like, well, that's not possible, or it's never been that way, or from my experience, you can't have this in this way. It happens in this other way. The mind can also get in the way with our judgments, being like, you could never do that. You can't be that way. This is going to cost us something, right? And the mind will also have stories, right? And so a lot of times our stories add a layer of emotional protection. So it'll be like, well, we don't want to do it this way because last time we got our feelings hurt, more or less, right? So the first part of the quantum leap process is to get your mind to go to a new band, like a new frequency, a new aspect of reality. And so what I find in this part of the process is to let yourself do the imagination bit. All right. Now, the challenge here is going to be like any place that your mind, wants to hang on or whatever. You also just have to remind yourself, like, right now, you're not making plans. You're not doing anything in physical reality. All you're doing is getting your imagination to do something new here. So any limitation that you're adding from your mind's past experiences, we just want to acknowledge that that's not necessary in the imagination realm. Right? So we're coming up with new imaginations. And so any limitation, anytime that your mind is like, oh no, that's not going to work, you're like, okay, we're literally imagining here. So you don't have to worry about the limitations of your mind because you're not building out plans. You're not building out. What you're doing is you're tuning yourself to a new band of reality. Okay, so that's really what's happening. So that's the first part of the process. Now, from here, what happens naturally, which is going to happen all on its own, is that as you start to move your awareness, your mind into this new place, your body is going to come along for that ride. Now, at first, when you start doing these things, your body may not feel great about this. You may actually feel some tension. You may feel tight. You may feel afraid. All right. And that's normal when you're starting this process, because what's happening is when your mind goes to a place that's new, your body cannot tell the difference. Your body can't tell the difference between, oh, I'm actually walking into the super fancy restaurant with all these super fancy people. Like your mind can't tell the difference between the imagination of that and the real experience. To your body, the experience is the same. Okay, so if you were to sit and imagine eating a lemon, this is like a really good way to ground what I'm talking about. So let's just do this. All right. So I want you to close your eyes for a second. Have a breath. And I want you to take your mind and I want you to imagine a big, fat, juicy lemon in your hand. And I want you to really let your body, let your let your hand feel the imaginary weight of this lemon. And you can feel its skin. And if you run your finger over it, you can feel that it's kind of smooth but slightly dimpled. All right. And now I want you to take your imaginary knife and cut that lemon in half. And see if you can smell the smell of a freshly cut lemon. All right. And as you look at this lemon that's been freshly cut, you can see a little bit of juice running down the side of it. And now I want you to take your imagination and open your mouth and pretend like you're going to take a big bite into this juicy, super sour lemon. All right. So most of us are going to have the response of our mouth watering and our body getting ready for this experience, right? Our body actually having the experience of biting a lemon, even though there was no lemon, right? Even though there was really no smell, there was really no juice, there was really none of that. But our body got ready for that experience. Our body had the experience of biting a lemon, even though it didn't. All right. So when we start to move our mind into new aspects of reality, we start to move our mind into new awarenesses, to new, places that are available, right? The body comes along for that ride. And that can be uncomfortable. At first, it can be uncomfortable. And so what we really want to do here on the embodiment piece is to just be gentle with ourselves. And if we're feeling uncomfortable in this, just tenderly care for that emotion or tenderly care for that little fear response or that tension or whatever else. Because eventually for the quantum leap to really start to get closer and closer to manifestation, what needs to happen is that new reality, that new possibility needs to start to feel more and more kind of like, normal. Like normal. Like, oh yeah, of course I made this much money, or of course I have this, or of course I have that, right? Okay. So once that tuning process is done, so it's two parts. So you move your mind to the new place in reality, right? And you use the power of your mind to start to imagine that reality. So you're constructing with your mind, you're constructing this reality. And then your body goes there, and now you're there in your energy realm. Now, obviously in your physical realm, you're still wherever the fuck you are, right? But in your energy, you're there in the new place. Now, what can happen here is when you go here and you stay here for a minute, what's going to happen is the thoughts are different at different bands of frequency, right? The thoughts that are available, because our mind is a receiver. Like, we can use our mind consciously to imagine, right? To draw pictures in our mind. We can use our mind consciously like that, but our mind is also a receiver, right? So different frequencies have different thought energy that's available. Also, in different bands of frequency, the inspiration, the impulses, the intuition is going to be different. So once we're here in the mind, so once we've moved our mind and we've moved our embodied state to this new place in reality, right? So let's say we were here, now we're going here. What's going to happen is you're going to start to get new inspirations, new ideas, new thoughts, new opportunities, right? Are going to start to come your way. Now, the next part of the quantum leap is to take the action on these things, which I will tell you can be very, very difficult because it's very likely not going to make sense to you, because these inspirations and impulses and intuitions are from a whole different place that you've never been before. The actions that you would take may not make sense to your mind, because your mind has currently been in the frequency that it's been at, right? And so these new things. So what's required to start to move in the direction of this quantum leap, this new reality that you want to be creating, is that you take the action, right? So your higher self, your awareness, you're going to get those cues. And if you don't take them, you're very likely not going to do the quantum leap. You can get there in your mind, but that's the difference between, like, you could just fantasize about something, right? Like, because like getting your mind and your body to feel some kind of way is one thing, right? Like if you've ever had like a sexual fantasy, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, but you're not taking any action. There's no inspiration. There's no intention of movement. And so you just have that experience with yourself, right? And then nothing really comes of it. So the difference here is that you're taking this with the intention of taking action. So that's the difference between just like a regular like daydream or fantasy and the quantum leap. The quantum leap requires action, right? So it's a 3-pronged process. So we have to get our mind to let go of the belief structures or whatever else, which is easy in the imaginary realm. You can just remind yourself like, hey, yo, like I'm not making plans here. I'm literally daydreaming. So the part of your mind, and you can, it's almost like, like when you watch a Harry Potter movie or you watch like a fantasy movie, your brain is like, oh, there's this suspension of belief. It's like a theater concept, right? So you're going to watch that and you're not going to be like ruining the movie for yourself. You're going to apply the suspension of disbelief, I think is what it's called, right? So you can have that level of talk with yourself there. Then with the embodiment piece, again, this takes practice. You may need to imagine and do your visualizations every day for 3 months to get your body to feel like, oh yeah, this is normal. All right, this is fine. And you want it to be like a slightly positive, kind of normal type feeling, right? All right. And the more that you can keep yourself at this energetic level, which is going to be different than where you've been, the more that these new thoughts and ideas are going to open up. And that's how you're going to take action toward the new quantum leap. All right. So the process of this, of how to do it, is very simple. Right? It's a 3-part process. You need your mind, your body, your actions all working toward the same goal, right? And you're going to imagine it in your mind. You're going to take that inspiration, or take that inspired action, the impulse movement, whatever. And we're just going to get your body on board. Sounds easy. So let me get into, there's 5 distinct, really big challenges that come up when it's time to quantum leap. All right. So the first one is going to be from the emotional body. This is where your emotions are stored. So you'll hear me talk about emotional range a lot. I talk about emotional range with my clients. I talk about emotional range as a skill to make money. I talk about emotional range for many, many things. So the first aspect of being able to do the quantum leap is that you have to be able to move your frequency, your energy there. And so for some of us, if we're carrying a lot of old stored emotion in our stories and from our past, if we have a lot of that's still in our energy field, what will happen when we go to quantum leap is this. So basically, we're going to be like, hey, universe, I'm doing a quantum leap. I want to be at a whole new band of reality. I want something way better than what I've got. And the universe is going to be like, oh, all right. Well, if you want to be at that band of reality, all this stored emotion is too heavy. You can't be at that new higher frequency with all of this emotional density. So I'm going to serve you circumstances in your life for you to feel those hard feelings that you didn't feel before. Because when you process the emotion presently, it's going to stir up those past emotions, right? And so you could probably know what I'm talking about here is if, like, I don't know, let's say one day your spouse does something that they've done that's been bothering you for 3 years, and all of a sudden you snap and you're like, it's not about today. It's about the emotion that's pent up and stored from the last 3 years, right? So you can ground what I'm talking about here. So you know what I'm talking about. So life, if you have a lot of emotional baggage and you're emotionally too dense to get your energy body to that new frequency, life is going to be like, well, here are all of these circumstances for you to move through these feelings. So the process of moving an emotion generally requires us to bring both of our internal sides together to do this. So on one side, we're going to have our feminine energy, the heart, right? Like the heart, the feminine side of us that's going to feel, right? And on the other side, we're going to have our consciousness, our masculine presence that is with us while we feel, right? So this is a 2-part process. And so what's going to happen here is when you drop your attention into your body and you start to notice where this sensation is, if it's got a color, a texture, a density, a story, a smell, a taste, right? You're going to bring your awareness into your body and you're going to start to feel that. while your awareness, while your consciousness starts to pay attention. Now, this process will generally move emotions very, very quickly. It takes about 90 seconds to move a single emotion, right? Move it through. What I want to say here is that if you have 30 years of stored emotions, it will take longer. If you have 3 different closets full of, unprocessed disappointment, you may process one closet of disappointment and then do the second process, do the second closet and do the third process or the third closet. And what I want to say here is sometimes people get discouraged because they're like, I'm still processing the same emotions. And I'm like, well, you had 30 or 40 years of that shit stored up. So yeah, there was a lot to be with. There was a lot of 90-second increments, right? So I just want to point that out so that way you have some reasonable expectations. I will share with you here also that the process of literally just bringing my attention into my body and feeling my feelings, this was a process that I did every day for probably 18 months, and it literally changed my life. I am more calm. I'm more happy. I'm more present. I have better orgasms. Like, I am a significantly better person now that I don't want to make it sound like I'm like perfectly emotionally clear, because I'm not, but I'm very emotionally decluttered. Right. So the emotional decluttering is something that very likely is going to happen when you say, I'm ready for a quantum leap. So let's say you want to 10x your business. All right. So I'm going to ground this for you here. So let's say you're making, let's say, I don't know, 200,000 in your business and you want to make 2 million in your business. Right. And so your mind starts to imagine what it's like to have that many clients or that many customers, and imagine what your website looks like, and it starts to put the pieces together. Your body gets on board. And at first you're feeling like a real lot of excitement, right? And then it starts to feel more and more normal. All right. You start to get those actions. And while you're doing your side of the work, the universe is also like looking and being like, all right, well, she's emotionally dense. She's not actually going to be able to get her whole self into this frequency. So we're just going to serve her. All right, well, she's still got some baggage around that time her Facebook ads account got shut off, or she's still going to have some, I don't know, fear of conflict, right? She's still going to, she's got some leadership things that she needs to work on, and this conflict's in the way, right? So the life is going to serve those two. So one of the skills that you need to be able to have a quantum leap is the ability to clear an emotion. So if you cannot clear an emotion, what will happen is life is going to serve you the thing. You're going to resist it. You're going to be mad about it. And then you're going to add to your emotional density. So this takes you further from the new reality. It makes your system heavier, where you were very likely going to be lighter, right? Energetic, on a frequency level. All right. So that's the first skill. So you need the ability to alchemize, to clear an emotion, right? And this takes practice. This is something that takes practice. This is why where I'm saying the quantum leap may be 6 months, or it may even take a couple of years to be able to go through all of this, depending on where you're starting from. All right. So that emotional piece is going to be one of the first challenges. And what I notice too is when I'm working with clients and we talk about this, so I'm like, all right, so you have this here, you want to be here. All right, so what does this new state feel like, and how are you feeling? And then we can start to like do a little bit of like subtraction, like what's the difference? All right, what's the difference? And from there, when you know that life is serving you these circumstances for this emotion to get cleared out, for this to come to the surface, and then, essentially for you to declutter your emotional house, a lot of times it's easier and we're more on point with it. The challenge is when you're doing a quantum leap, but you don't know this, it's just going to feel like a bucket of fucking icy cold water and a slap. This is where I'm saying, like, the quantum leap is not for the faint of heart, because everything that doesn't fit into that new reality, it's coming. It's coming for you. Like, your life is going to change. All right. So this is the first bit of it. Now, the second thing that life is going to look at is going to be your patterns. Right. And so let's just say you have survival patterns that were there from the time that you were a little kid, right? Let's say you took on all of the responsibility for everybody. Let's say you carry other people's emotional loads. Let's say you have people-pleasing patterns, or hyper vigilance or hyper independence patterns. And that doesn't match the energy where you're going. Those patterns are too heavy to come with you. Those patterns are going to have to come up. You can't take those patterns with you. You'll have to let them go. Now, where this, depending on where the pattern is in your like mental, energetic, emotional, physical bodies, right? Like sometimes patterns are real easy to clear, and sometimes they're a little bit harder. Like for me, I noticed this is my particular story. I worked on a pattern in 2023, 2024, and it was really in my nervous system. Like it was all the way into my flesh. It wasn't just a mindset pattern. It wasn't just an emotional pattern. It was like a safety mechanism that was so big that it looked like a personality trait. And it took me a while to be able to get that pattern up because I fought it, right? Because it felt unsafe. All right. So I just want to point this out. So again, you know what you're getting into, and you can also have reasonable expectations. Now, when I'm working with clients and we clear patterns, generally what I'm going to be doing when I'm working with people is I'm going to look at what's going on in their lives, and then I'm going to kind of go back and look for stories. So what I notice with patterns is the patterns are never really perfect, but the things that I look for are like the emotional signature of a pattern. And so that's kind of like, all right, well, this happens. Well, this is an example that I just worked on with a client this week. So I'll use this. So this client she wanted to work on something in her love life. And for her, she has often felt deceived, rejected, a little hot and cold, push and pull from in her love relationships, right? And so we can see this is what's going on in her current relationship. This emotional signature has been the consistent in her last, 4 or 5 relationships. And so that signature, that emotional signature, is part of the pattern that we want to break up. All right. So patterns are generally going to have a belief structure. And oftentimes the belief is just going to be something that we see as normal. It's not going to be something that you'd be able to be like, oh, I believe this. It's just going to be like the truth of your experiences. And then we're going to have the emotional bits. And sometimes there'll be energetic patterning. Sometimes we pick things up on an energetic level from, sometimes it's like shit that's like our parents, our grandparents. Like sometimes people have energy patterns that are not even theirs. They're older, right? And we'll have, there's also archetypal patterning, right? Like the queen is a different pattern of energy than the princess, than the damsel in distress, right? Like these are all different energy patterns that sometimes will run. So when we look at the quantum leap, sometimes the patterns that are too heavy, again, life is going to come show you a mirror of that. You're going to go through that pattern again with a chance to break the pattern. So again, if you know that you're quantum leaping and you know that this is part of the process, you can kind of be like, oh, life is showing me a pattern. How do I break this? If you don't know this, if you don't know it, it can feel real hard because life has just served you all of the emotional baggage that you need to clear, right? And like, fuck, it's just so much. And so now all your patterns come up. And those are even more annoying because clearing emotion is easier than the patterns. All right? So that's another thing, that if these patterns don't fit into that new reality, again, life is going to serve you situations for those patterns to come to the surface and then be cleared. All right? All right. So the next thing, excuse me. All right. So the next thing that's going to have to happen, and listen, these 5 things, they're not in any particular order. Life will serve you what it thinks you can deal with when the time comes. So the next set of challenge in the quantum leap is going to be the mental structures. Right? So the ideas, the beliefs, the judgments. Now, usually by the time anybody's intentionally quantum leaping, like they're doing this with intention, they've generally done some mindset work. And so I'm not going to go too hard into this, but the ideas, the stories that we have, the belief structures that we have, it just tracks that not all of those can go with you. And so you will be able to see those very easily on your self when you go to do the imagination and your mind is like, oh, but this couldn't work. Oh, but you couldn't make this amount of money. Oh, but you'd have to, like you'll start to see that when your mind resists even doing the imagination work. So all of the challenges that you have when it comes to the imagination, those are the things, to start to be aware of. All right. But anyways, if those can't come with you, life will also show you places where those ideas and beliefs and judgments need to come up. All right. So the next thing is relationships. So sometimes the way that we interact, our relationship dynamics, or sometimes like the people that we're in relationship with cannot come with us to that next level. So if we want to be in a whole different frequency band, those people can't come. Sometimes other people cannot come with you. And sometimes it's the relationship dynamic that cannot come with you. So oftentimes when people want to do a quantum leap and want to, have different levels of success or whatever in their business, oftentimes that there's a cost to their relationships. Now, what I often find is that when people actually do this, the fear of that one I want to acknowledge is very real. And I also want to acknowledge the reality that oftentimes when you do shift into different circumstances, you do lose relationships or they do change. And I just want to acknowledge that for you all because some of this stuff is real hard. So when it comes to the relationships, is oftentimes we have to let go of the hooks that we have in other people or the hooks that they have in us. Sometimes it's our side of the relationship dynamic that has to change. And that's going to also be part of that quantum leap process. So what I generally talk about with clients around the quantum leap thing is like, you're going to need to make new friends. You're going to need new relationships. Does this mean that you have to break up with your old friends? No. Does it mean that you have to break up with your old acquaintances? No, definitely not. But what ends up happening is you shift into those different, as you shift into that different frequency, as you start to shift into that new life, a lot of times the relationships just dissolve a little bit. Like the energetic attraction is not the same, right? And so those relationships will just become less important to you or important to them or both, right? So that's the next level of challenge. So that sometimes when we're doing a big up level, we have to go on our own. We can't take people with us, and we have to just trust and know that at that new level we'll make friends. We'll be at the right place, right? People say it's lonely at the top. No, the fuck it's not. It's not. Maybe for a minute between here and there. All right. So then the next part about the challenge that I want to talk about is taking the actions. So again, when we start to move our mind and we start to embody those new energies, we're going to start to get new intuitions, new impulses, new actions to take. And the challenge in this is that it's not going to make sense. The challenge is that it's not going to make sense to your mind. And that makes it hard to take action. It really does. And so for this to really work, you have to learn to trust your intuition. You have to learn to trust yourself. You have to learn to trust life, right? And so this is where, again, it's like, this means that we have to give up our illusions of control, right? So when we want to do that big quantum leap, people talk about surrender, right? Surrender. What does that mean? It means you give up the illusions of control. That's really what you're surrendering. You never had any control over any of this, but it feels like you do, and you think you do, right? So anyways, when it comes to taking the actions, this part is where it starts to get really, really real. And now also at this part of the quantum leap, from what I've watched with people, is as you start to pour more and more attention into the new reality and you start to become that new person and you start acting like that new person, and your energy is going into that new reality that you're constructing, right? Your energy is going there. What will start to happen is your current reality is going to start to look like it's falling apart. Maybe your clients start to let go. Maybe certain things start to happen. Maybe your relationships start to fizzle out. And so there will be a period of time where your current reality or your old reality is starting to dissolve and the new reality is starting to come online. But it's not fully built yet. And so there will be a period of time where you will be in this void space, this in-between space, this liminal space between the old reality and the new reality. And this is the place that people freak the fuck out. This is the place where then they're like, my reality is breaking. I need to go fix it. And so then they pull their attention back out of the new reality and they go and resist, what's going on. And so they rebuild what's going on in their current reality. right? So now we're essentially out of the quantum leap a little bit. Not to say that you couldn't get back there, but I'm just saying, like, so the challenge in this is that you have to take these actions when they don't make sense, and you have to learn to trust yourself in the uncertainty. So when your mind, this liminal space, this void of space is a very uncomfortable, very difficult place to be in. And that means also that you're almost there, because now the new reality is starting to materialize, but it's just not all the way there yet. And it also means that this current reality is starting to unmaterialize. So we're almost there at this point. But this is the hard part, because while you're there and your world looks like it's crumbling and this new reality isn't built in yet, you basically have to hold yourself. You have to trust yourself so hard. You have to trust that life is working out for you. And this is like the faith point. This is the place where you have to believe that it's not working, or believe that it's working even when it looks like it's not working. So this is the hard part. And again, this is where if you have illusions of control, very likely you're going to get in your own way. So when it comes to this process of the quantum leap, I just want to be very, very clear, because when I listen to people talk about the fucking quantum leap, they always make it sound like it's cupcakes and roses. And I'm always like, okay, well, one, you're going to have to release all that emotional baggage, which is its own process. Two, you're going to have to work on your patterns. Three, you have to let go of the beliefs, the fucking judgments, whatever. Four, there's relationships that you probably are very likely going to have to shift or change or let go of. You're going to have to take fucking actions that do not make sense to you, that will not make sense to other people. And that takes a lot of fucking guts. And then you have to give up all of your control to be able to surrender to life, because you have to believe so hard that you can do this, that when it looks like it's not working, you still know that it's working. And now once you have faith, I think faith for me is like the trickiest thing, because once you have faith, it's the easiest place to be in the world. But getting faith, I found, for at least my experience, to be very, very difficult. All right. So this is what the quantum process really, really looks like. And so I'm sharing this, and I think I probably have scared you a little bit from it. And that's not my intention. My intention is just for you to go into this wide open, and also for you to see the challenges of the quantum leap as just life working with you to get you further and further on your road. Not like, because it can, when you're the person that's going through your life falling apart and your patterns dissolving and your relationships, in tension, that can all feel so bad that it can feel like it's not even working, and two, it can feel just like life is literally attacking you. And if you look at it that way, you're going to resist it, you're going to fight it. But all of these challenges that you'll face in the quantum leap is life literally meeting you and helping you to get ready to be at that next level and to like get that new reality. All right. So the last thing that I think I want to say about this is, so the linear reality shift. So let's just say it's like, I'm just going to put numbers to these. All right. So this isn't really the way that it works, but so let's just say I'm in reality level 1, and there's a reality level 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So doing the linear growth, so going from reality level 1 or frequency band level 1 to going to 2, is going to require like a little mini quantum leap. Some of what's going to go on there is going to, the emotions will have to let go, or the patterns will have to let go, and it will be a little bit at a time. Right. And that's a fine way to go, that linear way. So it's like I go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and you can make progress there. The quantum leap is when you say, all right, I'm at level 1 and I want to be at level 6. Level 6 looks real good to me. The reality of level 6 is the one that I want. That's a bigger shift. So basically, like the frequency bands that you would have, if you went linearly and you would have done this all a little at a time, that might take you 5-10 years, right? And then when you do the quantum leap, you go from level 1 to level 6, but all of what needed to be, shifted or released also has to let go for you to energetically fit in at level 6. So everything's always working. So a couple belief structures to really put in here is like, everything's always working out for me. I trust myself. And I do want to mention here too, that the quantum leap does require you to be able to manage your own feelings of safety, which does require some nervous system regulation is what I'd call it. Or really, like, nervous system regulation sounds so fucking like medicinal and therapeutic. So I don't really love that exact way of saying it, but like there are some ways that your body knows that it's safe. Right. And so when you're taking when you're trying to get your body to go into a vastly different reality in a very short amount of time, she's not going to know that she's safe. But there's certain things that you can do to help communicate that. So certain things that are easy, like eating when you're hungry, drinking when you're thirsty, peeing when you have to pee, resting when you're tired, going outside, looking at something beautiful. All of these things are really, really like simple ways to do that nervous system regulation. But sometimes also like if you can't give up control, like if your body literally won't let you, like this is a good time. Like you may need a practitioner. You might want to go see somebody for like EMDR is a good therapy for like a trauma release, which is sometimes what's going to be required around like letting go of control or some of the things that will feel really dangerous in your body. Somatic experiencing is a flavor of practical work that you may want to do. And there's some things that you can do on your own. Like I'm not going to get into it in this podcast episode, but there are certain things that you can do, like yawn, gently, gentle movements to help yourself know that you're safe, right? And so basically when we talk about nervous system regulation, this is really what we're doing is we're conveying to our body that we're safe. So like when our body knows that we're safe, we're open to thrive. When our body feels like we're in danger, we shut down, we contract. And oftentimes that'll be the thing. That will slow down the quantum leap process. So anyways, I hope that you took a lot out of this. I hope that you the next time you're doing setting a really big goal, you can understand the tumultuousness that comes with that and understand how life really is serving you and how these things can, you can trust yourself in it and you can trust life in it. Because that's how you do it. And when like the emotional baggage comes up or the patterns and ideas and relationships come up to be cleared, you can see that for what it is rather than fighting it and resisting it and rebuilding the old reality. Because that's really like the challenge when, and I'm explaining this because I've been working with clients for so long that I've helped many people do these quantum leaps. Like I've many, a lot of my clients do really, really big quantum leaps when it comes to their business and their wealth identity and who they're being. And so when I'm watching this all unfold, like I see very clearly, oh, all right, this can't come with you. We need to work on this, or this needs to, I don't know, let go, release, shift, change, or whatever. But when we go through these processes alone and we don't know that this is part of the process, I think it's easy to fall into the resistance and just like the feeling of we're doing it wrong. So anyways, I hope this helps. Again, if you want to talk to me about doing big quantum leaps in your life, and you want to work with me through these processes and through these challenges, go ahead and click the link in the show notes and book a call with me and we'll talk and I'll tell you how I can help you. And then if working together is a good fit, then that's what we'll do. All right. I love you. Bye.